Hey, Terry Caliendo from Dedicated Managers here, and I am a coffee in, and I am super excited about what I just laid out and figured out. Um, I have been looking to figure out how to abstract out all my hard-coded data in this root form, or in these root forms. So these the forms here. Remember, I abstracted out these lists to a component that I pass in the values, and then I can display the list of each of the values. Now the forms I have fairly hard-coded at this point, or very hard-coded at this point. And if we take a look at the code here, this is that view here that shows that form, and here is the form here. So we've got the first name parameter here, the text field, and the first name label there. So that is this right here in the form. Now this middle name I have turned into a component that I call, and what's awesome about that is it's allowing me to now create a object here for that in my data, which ultimately I can pass this in, because data is static stuff, or pretty much static. You would use a computed variable if you wanted it to change, but this would be my my configuration file. So I can extract this out to a JSON file and pass it in here ultimately as a prop, and it's going to define my form, which means now I'm pushing things further out, and my code is becoming more succinct in that it's going to be easier to create this whole new database for somebody else, where I'm just defining the fields in some abstract JSON file, and ultimately the goal is to make a a visual builder where you can drag and drop and build this stuff. So a lot of that probably doesn't mean anything yet. I'm going to finish this up, and you'll see how much smaller this form has gotten. But for right now, if we take a look, so instead of doing my text field right in this form, I'm calling a component text field, and I'll show that in a second, and sending parameters, those parameters that I just showed in the data section, to it. So now this is an abstract thing that I can loop over and send these values as they come through, depending on what's needed. So again, that's kind of abstract. I'll show that in another video once I get there. But what this is allowing me to do, and this is where my hang-up has been, is down here in my computed section. So if we go back to the first name, which is this right here, to get the value, I have to call a getter on it, and that goes out to the store, and it gets the value based on the the doc and the collection, blah blah blah, but the field name right there. So that's my getter. And then when I set it, which is any time I type, if I type, well, I'm locked up there. If I type a letter, when I type, that D calls the set function, and now we go out to the store, and we set that based on what the new value is. So the hard part for me has been, how do I abstract this in this component? I want this first name to be a variable, yet I want these getters and setters to go through to that variable, or have that use that variable name. And until this point, I've been flabbergasted. I've been trying to figure out how to dynamically create computed variables, and I've looked at Vuex components that'll do that, but they just didn't quite do what I needed. And I've realized that I need to abstract it out of this file and push it to another file, and then I can pass in what I need. So I'm taking this first name, this getter and setter here, and I'm pushing it down to my new field that I'm importing. And so the local model is now my getter and setter on the V model of the text field, rather than having a hard-coded name. I'm passing in, I'm acting on this local model here, which is going to be the same for every instance of my text field, but it's the power of Vue is it's local to just this instance of it. So when I have if I have whoops, this text field that I'm passing my my data to, if I have two of these and then they're both different, one is using field name 1 and one is using field name 2, say, then they're both calling this same component and they're both using this same getter and setter, but they're different instances, and so they're going to receive their other values, which will be different. The field name that I'm going to pass in, that's something that I pass in as part of one of my parameters. So this one would be the value for field name, which would be first name, and then this would be the field name 2, which might be middle name. Whatever they would be, they're being passed through dynamically to this field name, and now my getter and setter are acting on that field name, which is a passed in value. And this is a cool ES6 thing here where to make the property name a variable, you put it in parentheses. Otherwise, it's you can't take a variable there, so it's expecting a string. But if you put it in parentheses, now my key for this object here, this is an object that I'm passing. My key is based on that field name, so that's the key, the field name that is the database name. That's here. That's these are the keys that I'm updating. So I'm passing through, middle name here is the one I'm currently passing through. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I know it's not very understandable right now, but the idea is that if we look at the difference file here, here is what I've changed. So before I was calling vText field and I was hard coding, stuff like middle name, and the V model was based on a computed variable named middle name, which was hard coded. So I was getting rid of those hard coded things, and now I'm passing through field name as something that's going to ultimately come from my JSON configuration file. It's going to get passed into this file as a property, but right now that is hard coded, so I still need to abstract another level. But it's turning this hard coded stuff into variables, and now I'm going to loop over this ultimately this form fields config is going to be another level back that I can loop over and find all the text fields and output those text fields, and it'll have an order, so it'll probably be an array of all the fields. But that it's abstracting it out. There's no more hard-coded middle name in what's here, and that hard-coded is getting moved to the data section, which is an object that I can set up as a constant or something that comes in. And then all that's happening here is now I'm importing that new text field component. So this text field gets set up by importing the component, giving it a value, and then taking that value here, putting it here, and setting it equal to the component name, which is what you end up using in your template section. So let me show that in the live file real quick. So that is me. Here's my text field stuff, and again, if I take this out, there's an extra one there. So here's my text field, and it is defined down in the import section. It's defined here in the components section, and then how is it tied to the actual component file, and that's through this variable form text field, which is importing the actual component. So that's loading this file here. So I'm pulling in this file here, and now my getter and setter is based on something that is a single hard-coded in here, but I don't care because I'm passing in the values to it that can change the field name and the field name and the value of it, ultimately the new value through the set function. So if that's totally unclear, well, let me get back to then the difference file. And so what that does is that also takes out this entire computed function, because I have this in my kinship, my main file here for my root entity, and that is again, that's the file for this form here. It also shows these other things, but we're talking about this form here and how these values get loaded. I have all these computed functions. So look at the length of this. If I highlight, first name, last name, primary birth date, all this stuff is going to go away. It's now all pushed down into here and run by the values that I'm going to pass in through this configuration. So I no longer have all these computed functions in this repetitive. Every time I go to add a field, if I want to add another field, say, surname or something, I have to copy this, I have to paste it, and now I got to change it to surname or whatever it is, and then I got to find surname in each of these. So I have to change this here and this, and so there's all these changes that I have to make. But now I won't have to do that anymore. It'll be a matter of just adding another set of parameters that define that form field in this config object. So again, I'm going to go finish up what I'm doing here. This is just the first step. I just wanted to see if I could actually abstract a field out. And that is what Vue is. You're supposed to make everything a component to simplify it. So that's what I'm doing. And so I'm pushing everything back to a configuration file. So this is, I'm rambling here because this is, for me, this is a breakthrough and something I've been trying to figure out in the back of my head for a while as I've been building this. I've been building it specifically for one form, but always trying to, or one company, but always trying to abstract out the fields that are needed to something that's just a configuration file. And this is a huge step towards doing that. It's just a breakthrough for me. And then ultimately, this configuration file can be built by a drag and drop interface that will, they can say, hey, I want my form here, and then go and define the form fields, and all that builder will build out this JSON file that gets imported into this program. So pretty cool stuff. Again, Terry Caliendo, Dedicated Managers. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to throw them in the comments. But the exciting thing will be if you followed this, the next video, or if you didn't follow it, the next video in the difference file, I'll be able to really show how this file got shrunk down and got rid of all of these getters and setters that have been annoying the daylights out of me. So again, that's it. Terry Caliendo. I'll sign off one last time. Take care, have a great day, and happy coding.